Okay. Hi everyone. First, thanks for coming. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do in this building and about our, mainly about our direct course PhD program, but I'll touch also on other options for studies here. Okay. I wrote here my email address. So by the way, my name is Yoram, and I'm the head of the teaching program here. This is my email address. This is Nili's email address, and you're all very welcome to be in touch with us if you have questions, also after the meeting today. Okay, so, oops. So, this building is the home of ELSC, the Edmond and Lily Safra Center for Brain Sciences, and we have 36 research groups. And one thing I wanted you to note, I just put here pictures of 10 of our researchers, is that people are coming from very diverse disciplines: biology, psychology, physics, computer science, medicine. And what ties everyone together is the interest in the brain. So if we would be a bit more specific about what these people are doing, neurobiology, cognitive neuroscience, systems neuroscience, theoretical neuroscience, translational neuroscience, these are all parts of what we do here as a group. Now, in addition to the PIs, the principal investigators, or the faculty members, there are many, many students and postdocs in this building, and they come from also very diverse backgrounds in terms of what they studied in their undergrad. Math, life sciences, psychology, physics, computer science, you can see the list here. And I'm going to talk a bit about why, or touch upon why brain research is so interdisciplinary, and why our philosophy of our approach to brain science in this center and building is interdisciplinary. And I also want to talk about, I don't know what happened. Okay. I also want to talk about why is this an exciting time to join the quest to understand the brain. And I thought I'd start with just some very happy events that happened in the past, for our field, that happened in the past year. One, many of you may have heard that the Nobel Prize in Physics was given to John Hopfield and to Jeff Hinton for foundational discoveries that enable machine learning with artificial neural networks. But it's interesting to note that John Hopfield is a physicist whose main research is in neuroscience, and Jeff Hinton is in his background is a psychologist. So in a sense, this Nobel Prize is an acknowledgement for the contribution of neuroscience to the AI revolution that we're witnessing right now. And I'll touch on that a little bit later again. Another very prestigious and important prize that was given this year was the Lundbeck Brain Prize, which, if you want, is the Nobel Prize of neuroscience. There is no Nobel Prize in neuroscience, but this is the highest prize probably given in neuroscience anywhere in the world, and it was given to this group of people. All are physicists in their training, except for Frederick X, who is the king of Denmark. The prize is an acknowledgement for the seminal contribution to our understanding of the principles that govern the brain structure, dynamics, the emergence of cognition and behavior. And again, this is a testament of the fact that brain research is a highly interdisciplinary area where we need tools from here physics, math, in order to understand the complexity of the brain. Now, Chaim, in this picture, along with other pioneers at the Hebrew University, founded the Direct Track program that I will talk about later. It's now in its 33rd year, and next year will enter its 34th year. Under the understanding that one needs a multidisciplinary approach in order to understand the brain. Yet several things happened in the past decade that make this even more evident, and I'll touch on them next. So why is this an exciting time for research in brain science? One, I think, area which is very obvious to all of us is the rise of the AI revolution which is taking place, and there's a very interesting cross-fertilization between artificial intelligence and brain in its present form and brain research. Many or most of the ideas that come into this creation of artificial neural networks these days have arisen or were motivated by thinking about how biological brains compute. And there's, on the other hand, now the great success of these tools. For one thing, these tools are just very useful in science in general, and specifically in neuroscience. You saw that an example for that in Didi's talk, when he used tools of AI in order to classify calls of monkeys. But even more importantly and much more fundamentally, the success of artificial neural intelligence is providing us with new ways to create hypotheses on how the biological brain computes, and also to ask what is the difference between biological brains and artificial brains. And there are many very intriguing differences whose uncovering may also help us generate more efficient and more powerful AI systems. Another important point that I'd like to highlight is the cross-fertilization between brain research and translational research, or clinical research. And I mentioned here three examples. One is the brain-machine interfaces, which are now already at use, the ability to create prostheses, for example, that are controlled directly by the brain, by putting electrodes in the brain that read out brain activity, and that controls a neural prosthesis. Another example is deep brain stimulation, a method that is important in Parkinson's disease, and also turns out now to be relevant also in other disorders. And a lot of research which is done on the molecular and genetic underpinnings of various brain disorders. I thought I'd put here, since I mentioned two prizes, I'll put a third prize which was given this year, the Israel Prize. And this is now in Hebrew, but this is taken from the Israel Prize website. The prize was given this year to Chagai Bergman, a researcher at ELSC, for his contribution to the research of the basal ganglia, and specifically Parkinson's disease. Chagai is one of the pioneers of treatment of Parkinson's disease, and especially the two that I mentioned in the previous slide, deep brain stimulation. And it's interesting to see that in the text that accompanies his winning of the prize, it is mentioned how his research combines basic research, basic scientific research with the clinical approach. And I want to add to that at ELSC, our main focus is on basic research, basic science. But in fact, we recently checked to see how much clinical and translational science is coming out of our work, or the work at ELSC, and realized that more than half of the ELSC labs are involved in projects that have clear translational and clinical impact. Now, I mentioned Chagai and Chaim. These are two of the pioneers, the people who founded our teaching program and later ELSC. In that sense, we have a very long history of interdisciplinary science, neuroscience at the Hebrew University, but ELSC is also a very new center in a sense. In its present form, it was created 15 years ago, and there's a very large number of superb young researchers that were recruited to the center and are now taking research in neuroscience into the next revolutions that are taking place in this field. And this brings me to the third point, which is that of why is it interesting and an exciting time to enter brain research, and this is that the field is undergoing a complete revolution in terms of what experimentalists can do in terms of their access to the brain. And I mentioned, and all this is through a number of technologies that all emerged in the past decade or a little bit more than a decade, but are really coming into play right now. And one of them is the ability to record the activity of many neurons in the brain at the same time. So for several decades, people knew how to put an electrode in the brain, and measure the activity of a single cell. But now it's possible to simultaneously observe the activities of hundreds, thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of cells together. In addition, all this is done not in anesthetized or animals that have to be in one place, but animals that are freely behaving and engaging in complex cognitive tasks. Third, there are tools to now access neurons in the brain, which is completely unprecedented, a completely new powerful tool in the field, a way to access specific neurons in the brain or specific types of neurons and silence them or activate them at will and observe both the behavioral consequences and the consequences for the activity of other neurons at the same time. All this is facilitated by very powerful genetic tools in certain model systems like mice and other animals. And another very important development through several very large-scale projects in the world is that there is mapping of the precise connectivity between all the neurons in a certain brain region. In this field, this is called connectomics. I thought I'd show you one picture from this building, from the lab, or movie from this building, from the lab of Lilach Avitan. And what you see here is activity of neurons in the central nervous system of this little fish. This is also a juvenile fish, zebrafish. At this age, these fish are transparent. And this enables to use a technique called calcium imaging, which I will not explain right now, but it gives us ability to monitor the activity of neurons in the brain of this animal. And you see here several slices from the animal, simultaneously the activity of about 40,000 neurons in this animal. This is about half of all the neurons in the brain of this animal. We can observe this while these animals are engaging in a task. They are fixed in place, but they are in a virtual environment where they are behaving, they are responding to stimuli, they are trying to catch prey. And now the question is, okay, we have this movie, we have the activity of 40,000 neurons. What do we do with it? So to make sense of all these data and to make use of all the powerful new techniques that I mentioned to you, it is very clear that it is not just sufficient to have the tools. One needs also tools to think about these data and to analyze them, and one therefore needs interdisciplinary tools also coming from statistics, data science. One needs theoretical frameworks using ideas from math and physics and engineering, and one needs crosstalk between the theory and experiment. One needs the experimentalists and the theorists to talk together in order to think how to use the technologies in order to gain new insights. And this is very much the philosophy of our teaching program. So I want to talk next about our Ph.D. Teaching program. And let me start with some key points. First of all, this is a direct track Ph.D. program. So it's primarily directed towards undergrad graduates, people who finished undergraduate studies, Toar Rishon. I will talk a little bit later about options for doing a master's degree, but by and large, primarily this is a PhD program. The philosophy of the program is that it provides an interdisciplinary education. In order to understand the brain, we need people, on one hand, that have expertise, some strong intellectual knowledge, abilities that they gain through a disciplinary undergraduate degree in physics, in biology, in cognition, in math, and so on. But now these people need to come together and they need to be able to speak each other's language. And so a lot of emphasis in the program is in creating this common interdisciplinary education. No one almost entering the program has a background in all the areas that are important. And this means that if you join the program, you will learn a lot, and you will learn a lot in different fields. And we'll see later in the course studies how this looks like. You get the opportunity to work to do your research. It's an academically leading research institute with very strong science. I'll touch on that a little bit later. It's an international program, that's why I'm speaking in English. We have students from abroad, and one other aspect of the program is that it's a program that provides it's a very special program. It provides a very strong support to the students in several ways. That, again, I will touch on this more later. Financial in terms of fellowships, academic in terms of the guidance and how we track, provide you with guidance and follow your progress follow the progress of students in the program. And the program creates a very tight-knit community between the students, especially within one year of the mahzor of the program. Students are a group that studies together and benefit from the diverse backgrounds of the different students. So our target candidates are excellent graduates of Toar Rishon, undergraduate graduates. This is an excellence program. It's highly competitive in terms of acceptance. And we're looking for people who are interested in joining this quest of understanding the brain. This should be your passion to understand the brain, or to understand neural systems, or to understand cognition. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about the structure of the program. I should mention at this point that if you talk with people who are now in the program, or people or look at the website of the program, you will still see something a little bit different from what I'm going to show you now. And this is because starting next year, we are revising the program, and we're doing it for several reasons. One is just to bring it up to date with recent developments. But more importantly, we're restructuring the program in a way that will make it easier to get into research in a lab more quickly. I'll show you how this will happen in a moment. Also to get acquainted with labs at ELSC in a more structured way. And also we're introducing a certain level of specialization in the program, meaning that there's a common part which everyone is studying, which brings you into the type of common knowledge that I described before, but then you can specialize in certain fields, and I'll explain that a bit later. So here's what you do in the first year of the program. There are three main courses. This is a physiology course in the three main pillars of the program. One is a physiology course, one is a course on human cognitive neuroscience, and another one is a theoretical or computational course. And alongside this, there's going to be a structured program for visiting in small groups, visiting ELSC labs and getting acquainted with research at the center and with options for Ph.D. research. Then in the second semester, we continue with a lab course, which is a wonderful, wonderful experience for people who take it, where you get acquainted with up to cutting-edge experimental techniques in physiology, or you can take a course in human neuroscience. You don't need to take both of these courses. You can, but you don't need to. This is, again, for those who are going to enter research in a more cognitive lab, this is the other option. And then there's another theory course which is centered around learning, with many ideas from both models of biological systems and artificial neural networks. There's a data analysis course which is focused on data analysis, which is becoming very, very important given the large data sets that are now being collected in our field. And you are expected to start working in a lab during the second semester. We call this a lab rotation, but in fact, you can either stay in this lab later for your PhD, or in the second year move to another lab. Then in the second year, the focus, and in this sense, the program has changed a bit. The main focus of what you're going to do throughout the second year, not only in the second semester, is you're going to do research in a lab. In addition, every student in the program is required to take 6 points in specialization courses, depending on the choice of direction, either physiology or theory or cognition. It's possible to take also additional courses, but we actually encourage in the second year focusing on starting research in a lab. Then there's an MSc seminar course, which at the end of this course, at the end of the year, people present the research, but during the year, this course provides some guidance on various skills that scientists need, such as how to choose interesting problems, how to present your work, how to search the literature, all sorts of skills that we need as scientists, and nobody teaches you in an undergraduate program. And at the end of the second year, you're supposed to transition to a status of a Ph.D. student at the Hebrew University. And from here on, you're a PhD student. You do PhD. The main thing that you do is do PhD research in a lab. The PhD in the Hebrew University requires 12 points of additional courses. They can be some of the specialized courses that I mentioned before. They can be other courses. And many people actually finish the requirements early, much of the requirement already the first 2 years, but you can take additional courses. And typically at the end of fourth year, there's something which is called the Stage B exam. This is now, what I'm telling you is general regulation of PhD at the Hebrew University. You submit a very detailed research proposal about your PhD. You have a committee that follows up on your studies. And then, in principle, you can finish after your PhD, submit your PhD after another year. More commonly, this takes a little bit more time, so maybe 6 years, maybe 7 years, but this depends on the student. I want to show you a little bit what are the specialization courses that are mentioned here. So we have in our program, we will have 3 specializations: theory and computation, physiology, and cognitive neuroscience. You were required to take 6 points from your specialization, but then you can also take courses from the other specializations. You don't necessarily need to take only from your specialization. And I just wrote here some titles of courses that we are likely to give. Not every course will be given every year, but this will enable more in-depth, more advanced studies in specific topics and what our program has been offering until now. One other thing I want to mention about the program is that almost nobody enters the program with all the required undergraduate knowledge in order to start doing graduate level research and studies in neuroscience. So almost everyone needs to fill in a gap, and the way we do it is that we provide preparatory courses which are structured as self-study courses with very strong support of ELSC staff. So there is a teaching assistant and the staff of ELSC that follow up on progress in these courses, but much of the study is done individually as self-study. We're using very detailed materials that we provide to you. And the reason we do this is that we highly encourage to do this before the start of the academic year during the summer. Now, it's not an absolute necessity. There is a way to fill in the gaps also if you cannot do this in the summer. But again, those of you who will join the program, I highly recommend to do it in this way, to do as much as you can in the summer. And the topics are selected depending on your background. Which areas do you need to fill in the gap? So if you studied math or computer science, you don't need to take the math courses. But if you studied psychology, then you will need to learn some basic math, linear algebra, and calculus, probability and statistics. This course is already running now in a self-study structure. And then we have a self-study course in basic concepts in cognition, and so of course anyone who studied psychology and cognition will not need to take it, and a basic course in basic cellular biology, what is DNA, RNA, and so on, and basic neural physiology, what are synapses, and so on. And those who studied life sciences or took the program in cognition here at the Hebrew University or in some other university, or took the Chativa in brain sciences will not need to take this course. Some additional details. One thing I want to talk about is where can you do your PhD. So I emphasize that this is the home of, this building is the home of ELSC, and the teaching program is the teaching program of ELSC. And you can do your PhD in any one of the ELSC labs, but there's a much, much wider range of labs in which you can do the PhD. There are around 100 other labs at the Hebrew University that are engaged in research related either to the brain or to neurons or to cognition or to learning, and all these topics, as far as we're concerned, are appropriate topics for research for students in our program. And so students can join PhD in any one of these labs while receiving all of the benefits that our program gives that I'll discuss later. And researchers outside of ELSC are in many departments at the Hebrew University: life sciences, computer science, physics, medical school, cognitive science, and so on. Our program provides very generous fellowships. During the first 2 years, it's basically the maximum fellowship that we can give for master's students, plus we pay the tuition. Then once you transition into the PhD stage, our program still covers 4,000 shekels monthly of your fellowships, which makes you attractive students to labs, students in the program attractive to supervise. And the lab provides additional support in the form of fellowships. And in addition to that, some students in the program work as teaching assistants, and then they get an additional salary. And I also wanted to point out that if a large fraction of students in our program, which it's an excellence program, and a large fraction of our students receive highly competitive and prestigious scholarships like CLO, Azrieli, and so on. One other point that I want to make is that we realize that PhD, joining a direct track PhD program is a very heavy commitment for many years to come, and it might be a difficult commitment to make. And therefore, our program is structured in such a way that you don't necessarily need to continue to a PhD. We direct our program towards people who do wish, at least think that they want to do a PhD, but you can join the program and finish it with a master's degree. And the way it's structured is that in the first year, nothing is different from the regular course of studies. But if you decide that you are not sure that you want to go into a PhD, you want to get a master's degree first, you can drop most of the specialization courses. You don't need to take much further courses. You can focus on research in the lab and write a thesis. ELSC cuts the fellowship at 50%, but your lab can complement it. And then you get a master's degree with a thesis. Every student in the program, also those who continue in the direct track PhD program, get an MSc, a master's without a thesis at some point, even before finishing the PhD. Now, one other thing that I want to point out is that for those of you who are not really ready to commit to a PhD, it's also important to understand that you can join labs at ELSC through many other master's programs at the Hebrew University. I listed some of them here. Many ELSC faculty members are affiliated also with other departments, and some master's programs also allow students, like Cognition, for example, allow students to do the master's with labs that are not formally part of the program. So keep in mind that that's also another option. And I would even add to that, that if you want to, if you feel that, if you're interested in the brain, but you feel that right now what you're passionate about is taking courses in physics and studying physics at a very deep level, or studying computer science at a very deep level, and you want to do a master's in these fields and only later go into research in the brain, that works as well. Brain research is very interdisciplinary, and you can enter research in brain sciences also at a later stage of your career. There are many advantages, though, if you know that you're interested in the brain, in joining a PhD program in brain research. The last topic almost that I want to talk about is just to ask whether our program is successful, and the answer, as you will see, as you may guess, that my answer is yes. To date, the program is, as I mentioned to you, running for more than 30 years now. To date, 196 students graduated. There are currently 98 students in the program at different years of the program that haven't yet finished their PhD. And what is really remarkable is to look what happened to students who graduated from the program. And this pie chart shows you this, but I'll break it up in a bit more detail here. So 30% of our graduates became researchers in research universities and institutions, which is a remarkable number. Especially if you consider that another 24% are still in the academic track as postdoctoral researchers. And of the rest, many are at the high-tech industry. Our graduates are everywhere in Israel, in universities in Israel, and in fact, graduates of the Hebrew University in neuroscience are a major part of brain research and neuroscience departments in Israel everywhere. So this is a breakup of, I think it's correct for last year or 2 years ago, of the number of ELSC graduates in different, who are independent researchers in different universities in Israel. And there are also quite a lot who became independent researchers in universities abroad, leading universities such as Princeton, McGill, UCLA, Yale, Stanford, and so on. And the last thing I want to tell you is just to discuss a little bit why join ELSC, why join research at the Safa Center for Brain Sciences. So what I want to convey to you is that ELSC is a truly very unique research institute at the Hebrew University. It is, in case you don't know this, ELSC is an independent entity in the university, independent of the other faculties. It is a center of excellence, which is both how it was intended to be structured and how it is in terms of its scientific output. It is an internationally leading center with numerous collaborations of researchers here with researchers worldwide in leading neuroscience centers. We have, as I mentioned to you, a long history of excellence in academic leadership in neuroscience, one of the first, maybe the first interdisciplinary PhD program in the world, with this philosophy that one has to combine tools from exact sciences, life sciences, and cognitive science, and a long history also of research excellence in these fields. And yet, in addition to the fact that we have this founding generation of people who made remarkable progress in understanding the brain, at the same time, it's a center that has recruited a very large number of superb young researchers in the past 10 years, which means that it's also a very vibrant and dynamic center. One other thing I want to point out is that it's a very well funded center. We have a very strong and top-notch state-of-the-art research facilities, such as the microscopy center, virus core facility, human imaging unit. We have maybe either the largest or the second largest high-performance computing facility at the Hebrew University, next maybe only to the computer science, to the School of Computer Science. And in terms of funding also, ELSC is #1 in the Hebrew University in terms of the grant money recruited divided by the number of researchers. So the money, grant money per researcher is the highest in the Hebrew University. And we provide a very strong academic and intellectual community, which means that we have many academic activities. We have a weekly seminar. We have international conferences. Of course, in the past 2 years, this has gone down due to the war. But normally, we host at least one international conference with leading scientists coming from all over the world in this building. We provide generous travel grants to students. Students go, we pay for the participation of students at the Israeli Society for Neuroscience meeting in Eilat. And we have lots of social activities like happy hours, student meetings and events. And one of the pinnacles of the academic year for us is a 3-day academic annual retreat that takes place either in En-Gedi or some other beautiful place in Israel, where we discuss and celebrate our scientific activity and combine that with social activities. So, to summarize, what we are looking for in terms of students is, first of all, academic excellence. Second, passion and interest in understanding the brain or understanding learning in neural networks, understanding cognition, and importantly, an interest in interdisciplinary research, which crosses boundaries between life sciences, exact sciences, and cognitive sciences. And I hope that for many of you, this is a direction that you will be interested in pursuing. Let's see, how are we doing in time? Should we pause for questions? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have time for questions later on, also with the students. So now or later, whatever. Sure.
So you not talk about joining. So let's say I do have master degree already. I want to join.
Good question, and this reminds me that I didn't put a slide on this. There are 2 ways you can proceed, or maybe 3 ways, okay? One is that you can join the regular ELSC program, but then you will take lots of courses. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you feel that having finished a master's degree, you've done your share of taking courses. You'll take some, of course, in a PhD, but you don't want to take the whole program. But that's one option, okay? We do accept to the program people with a master's degree. Second, what is your field of research in the master's?
Biomedicine.
Biomedicine, okay. So I'm not sure about biomedicine. So one thing, you can, of course, join a PhD. You can start a PhD with a lab at ELSC. You can talk with researchers at ELSC and start a PhD. We have our own PhD program. Third, for those who did a master's, but the master's was not strongly connected to neuroscience, we offer another competitive program, and there's detail about that in the webpage. And you're also very much encouraged to contact me to ask questions about it. It's a new program. What it does is, the goal of this program is to allow you a path towards a PhD in brain sciences when it's too early for you to choose an advisor. Maybe you don't know enough about the field in order to decide what you want to do in your PhD. And then what the program gives you is 1 year in which you can take, first of all, you can complement your knowledge in neuroscience by taking courses. In addition, during this year, you can contact labs and find your path, and you get a fellowship just for that year. And the idea is that this is a transition for people coming from various disciplines outside brain research, this is a transition into brain research, and then you become a regular PhD student at the university. Thanks for the question. Yes?
Is there a preference that students here study under ELSC specific labs or none? Like
No, our program allows you to do the PhD in any lab, except that the topic has to be somehow related to brain research or neural systems or cognition. We're very permissive here. We're not very strict in what we define as appropriate. But again, like doing a PhD in history will probably not be considered appropriate. Yes?
What is the